Hello, Dr. Emma Craythorne here with another mini episode of the After Hours Skin Clinic, where we give you the lowdown on the latest skincare. And today's episode, I'm going to be diving right into niacinamide. This is an ingredient that is on so many products on the market. And I often get asked, what does this actually do? Is it just a whole lot of marketing fluff, or is it really worth the hype? And sometimes you get to see that this ingredient is apparently fixing your skin barrier and it's doing this and it's doing that. And you think, how on earth can one little ingredient be doing all of those things? So I want to talk about the true science of it. And, you know, with all of these cosmeceutical agents, there are not too many placebo randomized control studies, which is the gold standard for all of the things that we love. But we'll do our best to break down the ones that there are there and show you what benefits that this ingredient can actually have for your skin. What brought this into my head was that last week I was at an event with some girls from university, and it was brought up in the subject. Somebody had some hyperpigmentation on their face, so little brown spots whenever they were out and exposed to the sunshine. She's called Fiona and she's a sailor and one of my dearest friends I lived with at university. And she had been reading through a magazine and said that she should get some niacinamide for this. So that's when it really hit me. We need to talk about this a little bit more. And also the most important thing about it was she had gone out and bought something that was 25% niacinamide. Now, niacinamide is really a great ingredient, but the problem with it is you have to use it in exactly the right kind of dosage concentrations. Any less and you've kind of wasted your money, and any more it's going to cause some irritation. So I told Fiona to take her product that she'd bought back, and I give her this little bit of a discussion on the science of it, and she realised niacinamide was still going to be good, and off she went to buy one that was a bit more appropriate for her skin. So I'll take you back to what the science of niacinamide actually is. This is a form of vitamin B3, and that's a really essential nutrient that your body can't store, so you have to bring it in some way. And it's a real key player in the skin's health because it produces something called NAD+. And basically, this is a fuel that your skin cells need to repair damage, to produce energy, and to stay healthy. And without this NAD+, your skin cells can't really fight off damage from things like pollution, UV rays, or actually even the natural aging process. And that's because all of these processes, let's think of them, they create something called free radicals. And it's the free radicals that go on and cause a lot of damage to our cells whenever we're thinking about things like hyperpigmentation and actually just the natural aging process that we are obviously very keen to keep doing, but we want to slow the signs of that down on our skin. So the first thing that niacinamide has been shown to do is to repair the skin barrier, but also strengthen the skin barrier. So it's really helpful for people who are already known to have a bit of sensitive skin or dry skin. And it's also very helpful for those people who perhaps have conditions like rosacea, or there's just been a switcheroo in the way the weather is behaving. It's got a lot less humid, or it's very, very dry. And in those people, you want to try and increase the moisture levels of the skin and keep that barrier as good as possible. So reducing things like dryness and flakiness. So it has been shown to do that in terms of protecting the barrier. It's also been shown to be anti-inflammatory for those things that I said at the very beginning, where it gives your body cells some fuel, essentially, to repair processes that are otherwise damaging them. And it regulates this by a couple of different processes involved in DNA repair. So for people who have things like acne, niacinamide's been shown to be effective for conditions like rosacea and actually sometimes even just general redness. Another reason why somebody might use niacinamide is for oil control. So by oil, I mean if you're somebody who makes more sebum. So sebum is something created by the oil glands in our skin. It's very important to keep our skin with a nice skin moisture level, keeps our skin supple. It actually has even a little bit of protection against damage from ultraviolet radiation. But for some people who make too much oil, then that can be a bit of a problem because the oiliness of the skin itself can sometimes act as a food source for the little yeasts that live in our skin, the little fungi that live in our skin. And sometimes oil can get blocked in our pores and it can lead to conditions like acne. So if we're trying to think about reducing those oil levels in the skin, then niacinamide has also been shown at concentrations of around 4% to reduce that sebum production. Anything less than 2%, it has no impact, and anything more than 5%, it's not shown to be effective. Another thing that niacinamide has been shown to do is to block the transfer of melanin, which is a pigment that our skin makes out of cells called melanocytes. So the melanocytes makes the pigment melanin and it transfers it along the skin cells. And as it's transferring it, the pigment gets distributed and we either get partly a tan or sometimes as sun damage happens, we get these brown splodges appear. And so with niacinamide, it actually helps us stop that transfer of the melanin so it can fade dark spots and even out the skin tone. And then another thing that niacinamide has been shown to be effective in is repairing of photoaging. Now, photoaging is something that is a change in our skin as a consequence of ultraviolet radiation. And these are things like us getting fine lines and wrinkles. And sometimes even when you look at someone's skin, you can see a yellowish look to it, or we call it a sallow skin. And these are things that all develop with age, but particularly with age with overexposure to ultraviolet radiation. And niacinamide has been shown to reduce that. There's only really been 2 placebo randomized controlled studies. And what that means is that they put the niacinamide at 4% on one side of the face, and the same person put a cream that looked like the niacinamide but didn't have any niacinamide in it. It was just the cream on the other side of the face. And they followed that person up for 12 weeks. Now, that would be called a case control study because it's one person. But what they did was they did it in 50 women. So 50 women put the niacinamide product on one side and the one that didn't have any niacinamide on the other to see what happened. But even better than that, they didn't tell the women which had the niacinamide in it and which didn't. And they didn't even tell the people who were studying the woman's face afterward, the doctors, so comparing whether there were wrinkles or fine lines or sallowness. So this is a really pretty good study. So there are a good number of people. The women acted as their own control. So you can't really say, oh, it's because one half of your face went out for the day and the other half didn't, because it goes everywhere together. And the women put the cream on themselves. So they were then used to probably putting and applying cream on in the same way. So a really pretty nice, effective study. And what this actually showed was in the side that had the niacinamide applied to it, the skin after 12 weeks was less yellow. It also had an increased amount of elasticity within the skin. And it also started to show a change in the fine lines. And that was over a 3-month period. So in terms of the effect it might have on something like photoaging, that is one of the studies. In another study, it was done very much in the same way, except this time it looked at 5% niacinamide and it compared either side of the eye wrinkle, so the crow's feet. So given that we don't actually have that many studies in the world of cosmeceuticals looking at ingredients, niacinamide actually is up there with probably the top 3 of evidence that we have. Number 1 being retinoids, number 2 being vitamin C, and then I'd say number 3 comes right on in there with niacinamide. So how do you actually use niacinamide? Well, for a lot of people, using it in a serum is probably the easiest way to do that. Then you're able to understand exactly what the concentration is that you're putting it on your face. So I would tell my patients in clinic, or I told my friend Fiona, put this on in the morning after you've washed your face, and you can apply the serum then underneath your moisturiser or underneath your SPF or underneath both if you wanted to do that. The next way that some people might like to wear it is in a gel, and I probably wouldn't go any thicker than a gel. Things like a serum or a gel are probably thick enough for a product like niacinamide, which we know can actually get through that stratum corneum, get into the skin where it needs to do the job, and then deliver the job quite well. So when we're thinking about what kind of dosages that we know are really effective for somebody wanting to use niacinamide, really, you need to be above 2% and you need to be below 5%. Heading on up to using something like 10% does not necessarily make this better. 25%, you're going to run into things like skin sensitivity, and going really past that, you're just going to start to run into trouble. And actually, the amount that's getting on the area that you want to put it is probably not going to be 100% anyway. But I would suggest the vitamin B would come in the morning while you use your vitamin A at nighttime. So cleanse, vitamin B, and then your moisturizer and SPF. Or cleanse, vitamin C, which is an alternative and covers a lot of the spectrum that vitamin B can do. Or if you really want to be very keen, you would then do wash your face, your vitamin B, your vitamin C, then your moisturizer, and then your SPF. It's a bit much for me. I think that if you're somebody who has a bit of skin sensitivity and irritation of the skin very easily, and you're desperately trying to rebuild your skin barrier, then I would pick vitamin B over vitamin C to be the serum in your skincare routine. Whereas if you're somebody who's really trying to push for hyperpigmentation to be reduced and the best evidence we currently have to protect against ongoing damage from life, really, then vitamin C is going to be better for that. Vitamin C is also better in terms of collagen support and making new collagen. Still not as good as vitamin A, but it's got more than vitamin B. So if I suppose I want to try and divide this into two channels, are you going to be a vitamin B person or a vitamin C person? A vitamin B person is going to be somebody with pretty sensitive skin, perhaps an increase in oiliness of the skin and a tendency to sensitivity and redness, whereas a vitamin C person is going to be somebody who is doing everything they can for collagen rebuilding, everything they can for hyperpigmentation, but have to have pretty strong skin barriers. If I wanted to think about recommendations for somebody who wanted to use something like niacinamide, there are a few that I recommend. The one I actually recommend in clinic for patients who have acne is something called Free Derm Gel, and that's at 4%. If you're wanting to use something that looks a bit fancier and feels a bit nicer on the skin whenever you're applying it, the ones I really quite like are from Bioma. It's called Brightening and Hydrating Face Serum. Another one is from Kiehl's. It's called their Oil Reducing Gel, and you need to look at the one that says niacinamide. And then I'm going to give you one that's at 10% for those people who really think that they want to try 10%, and that would be the Paula's Choice 10% serum. But please don't go any higher than that. So if we think about a mum who might have hyperpigmentation and has a daughter who has acne, and they think, well, can we just buy one and just share it between us? In truth, yes, you probably could do that. Other than the base that it comes in, so somebody who has an acne-prone skin, I tend to quite like the gels for those patients or those people, well, patients because it's an acne, whereas serums are much more of a cosmetically nice product. So it's not just about necessarily the ingredient, it's always about the base and how it's delivered. But somebody who has hyperpigmentation, 4% niacinamide is good. And somebody who has acne, 4% niacinamide is also good. And that's a wrap for today at the After Hours Skin Clinic. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you haven't already, please do subscribe. As we're a new podcast, this is what really helps us reach more people. And it also means that you won't miss an episode. So until next time, lovely listener, take care of yourself and your skin, and we'll see you on the After Hours Skin Clinic.